It's my pleasure to introduce Franzi Charen. As you know, Franzi is the founder of Go Local Asheville, an initiative that has had a profound impact on protecting our unique community feel by spotlighting locally owned businesses. As the founder and creative director of Love Asheville Go Local campaign, she and her team organized nearly 600 independent business members to advocate for a strong and healthy local economy. She also served on Asheville's Downtown Commission for 6 years. Franzi is also a local business owner and employer at Hip Replacements, a downtown vintage-inspired clothing store. Franzi is working in North Carolina to document the growth of good jobs and democratizing wealth through converting companies to employee ownership. And Franzi works nationally with Project Equity as a consultant in data analysis, marketing, and communication. So it's really my pleasure to turn it over to my friend and our community champion, Franzi Charen.
So I've been a business owner here in Asheville since 2002. And I've known many of your faces and I've heard many of your names. And I know that you all are amazing leaders in our community. Kate and Kim McGuire approached me to help conduct a quantitative analysis of the leisure and hospitality industry from a workforce perspective. I was thrilled to see this work being done in our community. I love this community and I want the best for it. And I'm thrilled to help out in any way. Hopefully this study contributes to building a stronger and more resilient Asheville and contributes to the work and the conversations that you guys are already having. So some of the questions we attempted to answer with this study: what do we mean when we say tourism sector worker? What demographic information can we know about these workers? What can we know about the wages of these workers? And what are the opportunities for accessing higher paying positions within this sector? All these questions came from the work that you have already done. And knowing this data is going to help us steer into a more qualitative analysis and help us ask the right questions when we do interviews and surveys and come up with real solutions for our community. So the tourism sector workforce is primarily the leisure and hospitality cluster. We use the North American Industry Classification Systems. Some of you guys know that as the NAICS codes. And that's what the Bureau of Labor Statistics uses. It's what the census uses to identify different industries and industry clusters. So leisure and hospitality, accommodation and food services, and arts and entertainment and recreation are the two industries that make up that cluster. There's about 25,000 jobs in the Asheville metro region, 15.6% of the total workforce. So across this presentation, when it's available, I've used data from the Asheville metro region, which includes the counties of Buncombe, Haywood, Henderson, Madison, and Transylvania. Some data was only available at the national level, and other data we've pulled specifically from Buncombe County. And I've tried to indicate where and when we've done that. Also, you'll notice you will get a PDF with links to all of these slides after the presentation. For most of the slides, I've indicated the source or sources where the data is so that you can also go to those sources and see where that comes from. So our worker demographics. So 3/4 of our leisure and hospitality workforce identifies as Caucasian. About 17% identify as either Black, African American, or Latinx. 6.6 identify as Asian, Native American, or another race. Overall, the workforce is comprised of about 6% more females than males. And the age of the workers is interesting. And you can see from the dark line to the green, it basically cascades down by decade. The youngest workers make up the majority of the workforce, and the oldest workers make up the minority of the workforce. So the green line here is 65 to 99. And then the darkest purple line is 14 to 24. So right here in this big dip, you can see it happened at the Great Recession. The number of workers experienced an unprecedented, the youngest workers experienced an unprecedented amount of unemployment and sustained that unemployment level for a length of time. So they then tracked the next stage of workers, 25 to 34, all the way up into the pandemic. When again, now we know that younger workers are being employed at a faster clip than the older workers or any workers older than them. So to me, this was really interesting data. For wages, we found the Bureau of Labor Statistics recently released national data on wages across the country. Unfortunately, for the Asheville metro region, we'll need to wait until later on this year for them to release the latest data. So Asheville wages, while they tend to track slightly lower than the national average wage, we can assume the trend to be about the same. And you can see here the NAICS industries to the left and the average wage in those industries. And the average wage across all private sector industries is $31.31. And leisure and hospitality tracks quite lower, not even at $20 an hour. And this is also a measure of an average of low, medium, and high paying jobs in each industry. So for the Asheville metro area, the most recent data was released in May of 2020. Most of this reflects pre-COVID earnings. And there it was $13.07 an hour in the hospitality and leisure occupations, or the average worker would make $2,778 per year, $27,178 per year. So because we do have the national data, we were able to see the increase in wages from pre-pandemic to last month. Across the nation, leisure and hospitality had a record increase of hourly wages at 14% from pre-pandemic wages. So you can see that in the lower graph. So here we start at zero right before the pandemic truly hit our businesses. And the orange line tracks the private workforce increase in wages, which increased at almost 10%. But leisure and hospitality increased at 14% from March of 2020. So with the assumption that Asheville wages follow the national average increase, that would put our hourly wage right now at $14.90 per hour, or almost $31,000 per year. So, however, at that rate, so the National Low-Income Housing Coalition calculated in Buncombe County, at that rate, one must work 65 hours per week to be able to afford a modest two-bedroom apartment at fair market value. So when we talk about wages, we talk about budget, and the share of income spent in a typical household. This study was for Buncombe County, and you can see here the vast majority of our families, or the vast majority of the budget our families spend is on childcare and on housing, making up over half of a typical family's budget. Healthcare is interesting. Healthcare costs have decreased in the past years, primarily due to the ACA, or the Affordable Care Act. And then transportation and food together make up about the cost of housing in Buncombe County. So again, the average worker makes $14.90 an hour in the Asheville metro area, or $30,000 or maybe $31,000 a year. But to afford a two-bedroom modest apartment in our county, it would take $50,200 a year, or an hourly wage of $24.13 an hour. Family Forward North Carolina is an employer-led initiative that many of you have heard of, I'm sure, especially employers. And their mission is to improve children's health and well-being and keep North Carolina businesses competitive. 50%, so they did a study, 50% of fathers and 75% of mothers have recently turned down work opportunities, changed jobs, or quit altogether to care for their children. In addition, the Work Institute's 2018 retention report cites the cost of replacing an employee who leaves is approximately 33% of an employer's salary, or $10,000 for a worker who makes $30,000 a year. So this really makes us think about, what can we do to lower costs or increase wages of these workers? Because it is very costly to lose them, and it hurts our families and our communities. As we know, too many North Carolina families cannot afford the basics. 1 in 8 families in North Carolina, according to the North Carolina Tax and Budget Center, live below the living income standard. Twice as many people of color are likely to live below the living income standard, and 3 in 5 women live below the living income standard. And many of you, I'm sure, have heard of the Big Quit. In November, the United States lost 4.5 million jobs, a record number, an all-time record, due to specifically Americans quitting their jobs. And 1 million of those, over 20%, were in the leisure and hospitality industries. Hospitality labor shortage could get even worse. 1/3 of current hospitality workers report being dissatisfied or very dissatisfied with their jobs. That's twice the pre-pandemic level. So here on this chart, we show the pre-COVID satisfaction with jobs in purple and the post-COVID satisfaction with jobs. This was taken in a survey from September 2021. And you can see here, the workers in the leisure and hospitality industry are twice as dissatisfied now than they were pre-pandemic. As a result, 58% of hospitality workers say they are planning to quit their jobs before the end, or say they were planning to quit their jobs before the end of 2021. And from a jobless survey, which surveyed around 1,400 leisure and hospitality employees across the nation, they found 3 out of 4 are thinking about quitting in 2022. And yes, they have received a pay raise. Over half of employed workers received a pay raise in 2020, and that increased through 2021. But over half reported that their raise was 5% or less, which fails to keep the pace of our rising inflation rate, which November was reported at 6.8, and we do know that that's projected to increase. Interestingly enough, over 2/3 of job seekers say that benefits are more important to them than before the pandemic, and over half would even consider taking a lower paying job as long as they got a better benefits package. So this is a graphic with a ton of information, and hopefully you'll find it as interesting as I did. But down here at the very bottom, the weekly wages, you can see across industry, tracking the weekly wages per industry. Down here, we have leisure and hospitality, pretty low, right above $500 a week. And then, of course, then the financial activities, professional and business services, information, all track at the highest weekly wages. On the very far left, we see the quit rate. And the quit rate for leisure and hospitality also is the highest. And then the size of the circle indicates the increase in average weekly wages since last year. So basically from December 2020 to December 2021. And in leisure and hospitality, the weekly wages have increased about 20%. So what that tracks is that there are also more weekly hours given or provided to the average worker, most likely because of the vacancies. And that's why the weekly wages are 20%, whereas the hourly wages have had a 14% increase. So in as of December 2021, the average weekly wage in the United States was just over $1,000, and the average quit rate in all industries was about 3.5%. So JobList aggregates millions of jobs from a variety of sources, including all, LinkedIn and all the job providing networks, ZipRecruiter. They also conduct and publish dozens of surveys and market trend reports. And according to a recent survey, about 25% of former hospitality workers report that they would not want to work in the industry again. And these are the reasons they listed. The vast majority, or the majority said low pay and desire for a new career path. Lack of benefits, difficult customers, schedule inflexibility, long hours, COVID-19 risk, and physical demands of the work were all reasons why hospitality workers report that they didn't want to return to the industry. And we have to remember that pre-COVID, 1 in 67 jobs were remote, but now it's 1 in 7 jobs. And that was from a recent 60 Minutes report. So there's aggressive hiring competition, and it's hurting our leisure and hospitality industry. So this was a study done by the Mountain Area Workforce Development Board. They created an economic modeling report for our region, which tracked jobs specifically in the accommodations and food sector in the Asheville metro region in the third quarter of 2021. And the job supply they found was 40% higher than the national average for a metro region our size. And jobs posting per month were 87% higher than the national average. So it's a real struggle to find workers out there. The competition is real. This is from the North Carolina Department of Commerce, Labor and Economic Analysis Division, and this is a fascinating data visualization that they created via Tableau. And I will provide, or I have provided, a link in here that you will have access to, so you can really look at all this information that they gave us. And I'm going to jump over to a live working version that we recreated for our purposes here. So give me one moment. So here we are in Tableau, and this is an actual working data visualization where we can select the area that we want to study. And again, so this is occupational projections 2018 to 2028. And what we're looking at is the growth rate and wage comparison for our metro region. Now, you can go in here and choose any region you want, any occupations you want. For us data nerds, it's kind of interesting. Here it shows you which region we're looking at and the counties we're looking at. And here's where you would select the area you want to study. We select Asheville. We're going to go here to select the career cluster, which is specifically hospitality and tourism. And that filters down all the areas where they find jobs in that career cluster. So we're just going to keep all those selected. What we wanted to know was any education level, and then also any star rating. North Carolina's 5-star jobs represent occupations with the greatest projected employment potential through 2028. So they rate the jobs from 1 to 5 stars based on wages, projected growth rates, job openings, etc. So down here you have annual wages. And it's refreshing. Okay, so down here you have annual wages. Up here you have annual growth rate. So in this quadrant right here, you're going to see the fast growth, high wage jobs or careers, occupations. And there are not many in the hospitality and tourism sector. Again, high wages down here, but low growth, not many either. You see mostly managers, supervisors, and the size of the circle indicates how many jobs there are in that circle or in that career cluster. So travel agents, that not too many. Annual total openings 7, whereas food preparation, serving workers, including fast food, annual total openings 1,500. So again, you can see how informative this is. It also might inform you as you're doing your research in what opportunities are there in this industry. And, you know, perhaps so many of us got our first start in hospitality and tourism, me included. I bartended and waited tables and mopped floors and all of that. Until I figured it out and until I could get other opportunities elsewhere, get the education that I needed, and was able to, to fulfill my dream in becoming an entrepreneur and open up my own businesses. So the hospitality and tourism sector does provide a great starting point for many workers, but as far as career trajectory, maybe not so much. I'm going to go back to the presentation, but again, y'all will have a link to this so you can search it on your own. So recently, AB Tech noted that over the 3-year period, over their 3-year review period, number of students enrolled in the culinary certificate program has almost doubled. So basically, they measured it from the school year of 2017 to 2018, and then measured the school year of 2019 to 2020. And they noted a two times increase of those enrolled in the culinary certificate course. And they also noted that 3% more Black and Brown students enroll in their culinary program than any other career path programs. Ways that community can help. And, these are just some bullet points and ideas and thoughts as I did this research that occurred to me and maybe can spark some conversations in your realms and with the folks that you guys know. Community economic development, increased capital available to help local businesses, support small business lending, forgivable loans, loan guarantees, patient capital, grow sources of capital like Eagle Market Street's Community Equity Fund, Self-Help Credit Union and Mountain BizWorks have Mountain Community Capital Fund, I believe, as well, that support more Black and Brown business owners and entrepreneurs. Incorporating technical assistance and funding to transition companies to employee ownership. And that's something that I've pursued and is kind of my specialty now that I work with businesses that are interested in doing that. Creating equity, distributing wealth, ownership across, opening those barriers to all workers. Prioritizing affordable housing, childcare, and healthcare, reducing costs of transportation. It's not just about raising wages. It can also be about reducing costs across the board, and also providing more benefits. And supporting workers continuing education, advancing career paths. Ideas and inspiration for employers. How do our businesses in the tourism industry and the hospitality sector remain competitive? We need to rethink the employee experience, workplace culture, and have our employees weigh in. Again, help reduce employees' cost of living, incorporate profit sharing, open book management, allow workers to have a true stake in the outcome. Make your workplace family friendly for your employees. And I know Katie Button's at this meeting, and I commend her and her businesses, her restaurants. And they prioritize a thriving company culture. They're certified family forward workplaces. And there's even a case study on the North Carolina Family Forward website that you can read. But she's a great resource in how to make workplaces more family friendly. Creating flex time and building in grace periods and paid time off. And all of these things, you can read for yourselves. And I believe I'm almost out of time. The very last slide here just has some questions that were posed by you already. Many of these questions were already posed by you guys, and some I just added here as a way to get the conversation going. And using this data to now build out a more qualitative study in the true experience of our workers in the tourism industry.